Hi everyone, welcome back to Nick's Diecast. In today's video, I'll be showing you and reviewing this 1/18 scale 1995 Alfa Romeo Spider made by Maisto. I got this model off of eBay for $23 in total. Thought that was a pretty good deal. Maisto is no longer making this particular model. They manufactured it from around 1995 until 2005. It came in three different colors. You could get it in this metallic blue you see here with this sort of blue and black interior. It also came in a metallic red. And there's also a kind of hard to find yellow version. And these models tend to come up for fairly cheap. Usually if you search on eBay for these, up to 50 results or more come up. In most cases, you can find one mint in box for under $35, which I think is good to see. The real Alfa Romeo Spider was introduced in 1995 as a replacement for the previous Spider, which had actually been produced for several decades in sort of the same style. Alfa Romeo also sold a coupe version of the Spider called the GTV. The GTV and the Spider both came out for 1995, and the GTV coupe was made until 2005, and the Spider was made until 2006, and both of them were replaced in 2006 by the Alfa Romeo Brera. But Maisto is the only manufacturer of the 1990s Spider in a 1/18 scale. Somebody did make a model of the 1/18 scale GTV coupe version in 1/18 scale. I think it was Automobile. They're kind of like an expensive like resin brand. So I believe they were made in sort of very low numbers. I've only seen actually one picture of it. But if you're looking for a 95 to 05 Spider model, this is going to be the largest replica that you can find. I think Norev made 1/43 scale versions of the Spider and the GTV. But overall, I think this is a pretty good model in terms of overall detailing. And I'd say it's actually slightly better in terms of quality than the other models that Maisto was actually manufacturing in the 1990s. So go ahead and take a look at these details. We'll start up here with the front of the model. I think Maisto did a great job with these headlights here. Cool thing is that the headlights actually aren't just these two small bulbs. If you lift up the hood, you'll see that's the actual headlight shape. So I think Maisto did a good job of kind of replicating those. And they actually drill out the holes into the metalwork of the hood. And they do a great job of capturing the kind of four-circled look of the front here. There's actually no pegs to be seen, even when you lift up the hood. There is kind of like one small peg there, but you can't really see it because the hood actually closes right over it there. But I think they did a good job overall with the shape of the lights here. There is a center grille here, as you see, the trademark kind of triangular-shaped Alfa Romeo grille. Kind of has a textured mesh pattern on there. It's not actually perforated, but I don't think that's a big deal. You do have the small Alfa Romeo badge up here. It's actually just a sticker, but it's not going to like pop off or anything unless you touch it too much, I suppose. They also do a great job of replicating these lower grills down here. You can see that there's two kind of on the bumper that are kind of like slatted. And down here you have kind of these mesh grills. These actually are perforated mesh, which is kind of cool to see. And these lower lights down here, they're actually replicated as separate plastic pieces as opposed to stickers, as opposed to being painted on, I should say. But overall, great detailing on the front here. Taking a look at the side, I think Maisto did a great job of capturing the interesting look of these rims that were stock on the Alfa Romeo Spider. Lots of spokes on there, kind of like flower petal shaped a little bit. You have the molded in lug nuts in the center and also kind of the etched in Alfa Romeo badge in the middle there. And you also have branded tires. These have Goodyears on them. You do have full suspension and steering on the model, but the steering is a bit odd on mine because when you have the wheels straight and you roll the car, it does kind of steer, like it kind of jolts to the left a little bit. I can probably just, fix this by unscrewing the steering system underneath here and just kind of like realigning it or something. But that's probably just a small factory defect. And the model is up on my shelf anyway, so I don't really, roll it around all that much. But aside from that, the steering is fairly good, I would say, a little bit noisy. And the suspension is actually well done. Also, taking a look at the side, you'll see this Pininfarina badge in the back here. That's actually painted on. A lot of times Maisto did just pretty much all stickers for their badges. You either had all stickers or all painted on badges. In the case of this model, it's kind of a mix of stickers and painted on badges. But the only two badges that are stickers are actually the Alfa Romeo badges that you see on the trunk lid and on the hood. The rest of the badges are actually painted on, as we'll see when we go to the back here. But cool touch. And the paint job overall, I would say, is actually very well done compared to Maisto's other models they were making during the 1990s. It is kind of a nice like metallic finish to it. And there is some slight like orange peel and rough areas here and there, but they're hardly noticeable. A lot of these earlier Maisto models, they have really kind of noticeable paint defects in certain lighting. But on here, it's actually hard to spot. Like I know I saw some, but it's just hard. Yeah, like there's a few up here, very tiny. And you can't even really see it on this camera too. But so that's kind of unusual to see that. Of course, if you do opt to buy a later version of this model, mine was actually made, I think, in 1996 or 97. If you get one that was made probably between 2000 and 2005, the paint will likely be flawless, because at that point, Maisto really was doing an awesome job with their paint jobs. Take a look at the back, you will see this kind of single piece taillight back here. Yeah, there are two pegs on either side, but I don't think that's a big deal. The taillight piece itself is actually nice and flush with the body. There's no, big gaps or anything there. I think that's a great touch. You do have the Alfa Romeo badge in the center there, a little bit off center, but that's not a big deal. And you have the Spider inscription and the V6 badge back here, done in kind of this silver paint. So I think they did a great job with those. And you have this exhaust pipe down here. And you actually do get these license plates on here. I actually had to glue the front plate back on. It was kind of peeling off a little bit, so I just took a glue stick and kind of glued it back on. If you have that issue, I would recommend taking off the entire license plate kind of very carefully, just putting some, glue stick glue on the whole back and then just kind of pasting it back on. And you have to kind of, push it like that so it sort of stays in place. And this has been about 2 months now since I've gotten the model, and it stayed on there quite nicely. So I would say that was a successful project. And this car is interesting to look at all angles, and it really is cool to have, a model of it, because you can kind of, look at it from all angles at the same time. In terms of opening features, we'll take a look back here at the trunk. And as you can see, when I move the model around, this wheel kind of gets caught and turns with like the steering. A lot of Maisto models don't do that, but on here, I guess because I have that small defect, it does. But just a kind of random little note there. You do have the opening trunk. We'll take a look at that first. It is kind of hard to open because the way that it's angled, you do have to kind of use your fingernail a slight bit. There we go. Not too much to see in here, aside from this like convincing leather textured spare tire cover. It even feels like a real piece of leather. It's really kind of cool that they put that in there. Of course, there is no actual spare tire or wheel like behind this, but the fact that Maisto put this in here as like a separate kind of leathery piece as opposed to like a piece of hard plastic, I think that's great attention to a detail there. And aside from that, the trunk is fairly well done. It's not carpeted, of course, but you do have kind of a rough texture of plastic. And the trunk actually goes very, very deep down, which is interesting to see. And of course, on the underside of the trunk lid is just barely painted metal. I think on the real car, it would either kind of be covered with felt or it would be at least fully painted. But if that bothers you, you can easily just paint it yourself, I guess. This dark blue is a fairly common color, I think, with like spray paints and everything, but not a big deal. You're probably gonna be looking at it from, here anyway, as opposed to the underside like that. But cool additional detail with this kind of spare tire cover back here. I didn't know that it would actually have that. We'll take a look next at the engine detailing. The hood opens up like so. As you saw, that the headlights, they have that kind of cool effect where this is how they actually are shaped, but then when the hood's closed, this is how they look. I thought maybe the headlights were actually mounted into the hood, like on the real car, but no. So that's always a cool kind of design touch on these cars. Very well detailed engine, as you can see here. The main block is fully three-dimensional. You can see all the different wires and like spark plugs and everything in there. You have the Alfa Romeo inscription in the center there, and you have the V6 badge up here. All Spiders did come with this V6 engine. They could have done a better job back here. I wish they had fully painted these sections. I assume on the real car they should be fully painted. And the underside of the hood, that's like, wow. If this model were to be re-released today, Maisto would definitely fully paint the underside of the hood. You probably wouldn't get as much separate three-dimensional detail in the engine that you see here, but they would definitely kind of fully paint this. It doesn't look that great, to be honest, but at least the rest of the engine is actually very well done. I mean, you can see all the way down to the bottom. Just Maisto always did these amazingly detailed engines in their mid-1990s cars. And this warning label is kind of popping up a little bit. I'll probably do the same thing I did with the license plates, where I just get a glue stick, and slap some glue on there and kind of push it back down. It does kind of hold down when I do this, but Yeah, it's just kind of peeling up. So yours might come with a missing sticker. The fact that this is peeling up a lot, but that's not a big deal. As these models age, stuff like that is kind of unavoidable, unfortunately, but not a big deal at all. All right, next let's take a look at the interior detailing of the model. Of course, you do have the opening doors as well. They open up on dogleg hinges. They actually open and close up very tightly too. There's actually a small clip on here, so the doors actually do kind of clip shut. So it does take a little bit of an effort to kind of push them to open, but that shows that they kind of pay attention to the quality of these, which is nice to see. The dog legs may get loose over time, but I believe you can actually fix the dog legs or make them tighter by disassembling the model, and there should be screws that kind of hold these in place. So I'll probably never have to deal with that because I never really open the doors on my models all that much, but just something to kind of point out there. But taking a look at the detailing on the door panels, Maisto, I think, did a great job with these. Overall, you can see there's kind of a nice texture going across on the blue portions, and you have kind of a separate black piece down here, and also a separately cast plastic door handle and this functional door pocket down here too. So I think that's always cool when they sort of put in these smaller, fine details like this. And the door panel was nice and flush with the actual door. Maisto also did a great job with the seats. The overall look and shape of them looks very well done. There's even an Alfa Romeo badge kind of in the center of each one. On the real car, they would kind of be stitched in there, I suppose. But there's a nice kind of like leather pattern on them. They are the right, size and shape. They do actually move a slight bit too. The seatbelts kind of help to anchor them in place as you kind of fold them up a little bit. And speaking of seatbelts, you do have these separately cast sort of plastic vinyl seatbelts on here. Might actually make the buckles silver to give them a more like realistic look, but the fact that they're on there, I think, is a very cool touch. Detailing on the dashboard and the center console could be better, but this isn't really surprising for a Maisto model from the 90s. All the accurate shaping and everything is there, but you just don't really see colored in buttons and whatnot. They do nail the overall texture of the dashboard. I'm being a little bit overly amplified a little bit, but and you do have the molded in kind of vents and speakers and everything there. I think these three should be gauges, but they're just kind of molded in as the same color plastic as the rest of the dashboard. But again, this model was from 1995 or 96, so details aren't necessarily going to all be there. At least they do put in some effort here, I guess. But if this model were to be re-released today, they would definitely have a lot more detail on this center stack here. At least they do have the shifter and parking brake as kind of separate pieces here. And they actually have molded in floor mats. It looks like these are separately cast pieces you can pull right out, these floor mats, but they're actually molded into the floor, and they have a nice texture to them too. I kind of wish maybe they did better detailing on the center stack instead of putting in these floor mats, but I think the floor mats are actually cool. And the steering wheel, they do a great job with that, I would say. The badge in the center is just a sticker, but at least there actually is a badge there, and the texture sort of matches up with the dashboard. And you have this separately cast gauge cluster piece here that's actually done in black, so it does sort of stand out from the rest of the interior, which is cool to see. And you do have pedals down here. They're just hard to see. Kind of see them from this angle here a little bit. They have a nice overall shape and a texture to them, and you do see the floor mat on the driver's side too. So overall, not the worst interior in the world, but definitely not the best in terms of detail. I think, the features like the seats and the seat belts and those floor mats, I think, kind of make up for the lack of detailing on this center stack here. But again, this model did originally come out in 1995, so I don't think that's a big deal. Last but not least, we'll take a look at the undercarriage. Pretty well detailed down here. The exhaust pipes are done in chrome, but that is pretty typical of these Maisto models. You can see a lot of the components of the engine down here, because as you saw up above there's a very kind of nice three-dimensional engine piece that they put in there. So that's always cool to see that. I kind of like the different colors they put in down here. Like these side skirts are actually separate plastic pieces, and kind of the main portion down here is actually dark gray. You have the black suspension and steering components and the chrome exhaust system. A lot of Maisto's more recent models, you would just have completely black. I mean, you'd have a separate chrome exhaust system, but everything else would just kind of be black plastic. At least down here, they do kind of differentiate between the different, I guess, functions of these inner workings down here. Overall, I would say this is a pretty solid effort from Maisto for one of their 1990s models that they came out with. It is fairly easy to find, I would say, for a good price. This would look good with, other Alfa Romeos if you like to collect those, or if you like, cars from the 90s or just 1990s, sports cars and everything. I think it would be a good fit for your collection. Overall, I would definitely recommend getting it. As always, hope this overview and review of the model were helpful, and feel free to comment down below with your thoughts on the model or on the video. And don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.